Thank you, thank you. Am I on? Is this on? You can hear me. Yeah, lovely. Yes. Moving on from Andre's two questions, does anyone in here hire interns, for want of a... Okay, right, your cards are marked. I don't have a timer yet. Could somebody give me a timer? So otherwise we'll be here all evening and you've had a long day. Super. So yeah, Intern Magazine. It's probably pretty self-explanatory what I'm going to spend the next 9 minutes and 50 seconds chewing your ear off about, but I'll crack on regardless and we'll see how we go. So if we had to sum things up, it'd be that it's a publication for and by the creative youth, and that term is one that I mean in the most inclusive sense, in terms of our future, how we've moved on, and I always use the royal we. I don't like to, it's similar to Kai. It's, for the most part, it is a one-man operation. Our contributors, as we call them, are young people looking to get a foot in the creative industries. Everyone gets paid, albeit not as much as I'd like to, but I don't have the money that a lot of larger companies have. And everyone is treated as an equal. They're a part of the team, they're a part of the family. And the idea is effectively that we can, we won't go on to that just yet, we can make a publication that is truly representative of a group of people that I felt were underrepresented, but were still making a significant contribution to the publishing field. So how did I get into it? I interned for my first internship at the ripe old age of 27, which didn't quite make me too old to make people's coffee. The fact that I don't drink coffee meant that once people had asked me once, they didn't ask me again, which is a great tip for anyone out there looking to avoid that kind of work. Funnily enough, nor can I speak Italian. Domus is based in Milan. It's a design and architecture magazine. My background is in sociology. You can see a pattern emerging here. Quite how or why they took me on, I will never know. But I had a whale of a time, mostly because they have a thing called aperitivo, which means 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., any bar in the city, every night, free food. Italians take a little bit, have a drink, and then go and pay for a meal. Not the English people. We eat, and then we eat, and then we go home and we sleep. But that was really interesting. It's not an independent magazine by any means, but it was my first opportunity to see if this little fantasy world that maybe I thought I'd finally found a career that might be interesting, whether once I actually got down to it and started working in it, whether that would put me off, as most things in life have turned out. I came back from there unscarred, still undeterred, and moved to London and interned with a fantastic magazine called Boat, which, despite its name, is a travel magazine that biannual, each different issue goes to a different city in the world, tells a beautiful tale of that city by talking to the people that have lived there all their lives, and that kind of really refreshing honesty. It was a magazine with purpose, which I'll try and come back to in a little bit. As my time there wound down, and it became more obvious that from just the way independent magazines run their financial structure, that my kind of dream of being taken on permanently by them, given that they only worked on it themselves 2 days a week, was pretty unrealistic. So I started to try and work out a way in which I could stay in the industry. And this is coming back to this idea of a magazine for the underrepresented people, not necessarily like me, but a lot of people that I'd met over that last 9 months played a big part in the magazines that they worked in, and usually would be credited with a single line in the colophon, and that was about the end of that. So I started thinking about an idea to make a magazine that we could, first of all, have a discussion about internships and what on earth is going on and what the fuck we're meant to do. And also to help promote these young people. And because I'm a traditionalist, I thought what better way to do that than in print, even though it's completely impractical financially. And as Kai alluded to earlier, a nightmare, especially when you're illiterate and impulsive. But nevertheless, we worked towards Intern. We got to this point, which was our issue 0. Then I realized we didn't have any money, so we turned to the internet, and namely Kickstarter, which we somehow got away with convincing 347 people to back us. That was a great means as well of just seeing if there was this community that I imagined was out there, were indeed out there, and whether they'd be open to this kind of, having this kind of discussion, and this kind of, I suppose, resource as well, because we're looking to help people navigate their way from education or from young adulthood into the career that they're after. So mercifully, we picked up a lot of pretty nice press. This had nothing to do with my ingenuity. It was because 2 people were suing the makers of Black Swan for not paying them during an internship. So this worked out beautifully for us. We were considered the kind of countercultural response. I was very happy with that. But of course, as soon as that story died, so did mainstream media interest in this subject, which I thought was quite amusing, because a lot of the big media companies that interviewed us and featured us all had interns of their own. Vice, being Vice, wherever Vice are, quite brilliantly had one of their interns interview me, which was a very Vice way of looking at it. So we worked towards first issue, there it is. Second issue is there. A few spreads just to get your purses ready for the inevitable online purchase you're going to make after you've picked up off screen downstairs. There's really good open Wi-Fi downstairs, so no excuses for PayPal not going through. Again, I remember faces. So I suppose one of the things I'd like to very briefly, 3 minutes, 38 seconds, talk to you about is how we get on now. Obviously, the internet was a great way for us to start our journey financially, and a concept that I have borrowed, we shall say, off Kai, rather taken from him with his, and then retrospectively asked for permission, was the sponsorship model. And again, that for us is a really nice means of not sacrificing too much from our aesthetic, talking to our readers in a way that they are comfortable with, and also as a small publication, when you're trying to kind of establish your brand and align with people, it also means that when companies that you're not that crazy about want to advertise with you, it doesn't make your magazine look shitty, and that's certainly something that's worked for us in the past. So this is a very quick look at our third issue, which is currently grounded because we don't have enough of these. So if anyone has excess money in their pockets or their company's pockets and wants to use it to forward the goodwill of the next creative generation, I'm your man. I might not be microphoned at the time, but I'm definitely your man. In terms of the internet and how it affects us moving forward, we are heavily submission-based. So we can't really profess to be for and by a community unless we listen to them and engage with them. This issue is our first themed issue. It's about education, hence the figure falling into what may or may not be a soft landing. Yeah. Visual pun, anyone? No? Thank you, ripple. I'll take a ripple. And yeah, so this is the only reason it's an issue about education is an overwhelming majority of our submissions that were really interesting revolved around that subject. And this is obviously the way the narrative and the discourse is going. So I hope that as we live on, if we do continue to live on, will be a nice reflection of the state of affairs when it comes to internships. Very quickly, to try and tie this painfully into the digital, in brackets, that this segment of the evening was titled with. For me, the future for us is very cliche. You look at things over the past 18, 24 months, very, very easily, the internet, it helps bring communities and ideas together. That's certainly something for us. Not the Arab Spring, clearly, but it meant that a community of people around the world can share a variety of perspectives about our subjects. So from a publishing point of view, if I can leave you with anything here today, it would be the plea for you to use this kind of opportunity to interact with and feed from a worldwide community and a worldwide perspective to make something with real purpose that helps to shape the media narrative and helps to take it in the direction you'd like. Because after all, almost another ripple there, after all, the main problem with internship, or a problem with internships, is that if everyone has to buy their way in, very soon, 15, 20 years, we could be in a situation where our media narrative is being shaped for us by people that don't represent us. And I think that's a, not to get too dark on it, but that's a scary thought. So there's nothing to stop us doing something about that. And I hope that any of you with publishing aspirations will take that as a little bit of a cue to get on out there and do something that you care about. Thank you very much. Top one to buy magazines, bottom one to follow us about magazines. Enjoy your evening.